Stop on the street and ask questions and stuff. Have you started telling Knicks fans that look like they're not going to get nobody?
I stepped out of my apartment last week, and a guy was yelling into his phone, "Are we still going to get KD?" I did not have the heart to tell him no.
He was screaming into his phone?
Yes. He was talking to some other sad New Yorker, and I didn't want to...
Oh, he wasn't... Oh,
no.
My bad. I thought he was talking to you.
Oh, yeah, no. When I walk outside, people
they don't
think I'm an intern like Andre Iguodala did that one time.
Oh, wow. Wonder what that's like.
It's fun, actually.
Up first is Kemba Walker. Celtics have emerged as the favorites to sign Walker when free agency starts per agent Wojnarowski, and Boston is expected to offer a 4-year contract worth $181 million. The Hornets don't seem to think paying Walker that much is a good idea, opening the door for the Celtics to replace Kyrie Irving with another All-Star. Pablo, do you think Walker could make the Celtics better than they would be with Kyrie?
I think he could, but let's be clear about what's happening here. The Celtics are terrified about being stuck on the treadmill of mediocrity, because they are not good enough to contend, and they are not bad enough because they have the young talent remaining to scrap it and rebuild and do a process type thing. So what are they doing? They're looking at Kemba Walker and saying to themselves, this kind of looks like a point guard that Brad Stevens could elevate. He elevated Isaiah Thomas, he elevated Terry Rozier, and unlike Kyrie Irving, who is more talented than Kemba, he's a guy who might not blow off Brad Stevens and freelance when Brad Stevens wants him to run the system that Brad Stevens likes.
I don't know why people assume so much that this dude who, averaged 26 points a game last year, is 9 deep in the league, is going to do all that listening to Brad Stevens that you talk about, right? Who thinks that Kemba Walker is a better player than Kyrie? Because you tried to couch it by saying he's not the more talented. Who's better?
Right now, for this team,
who's better?
I think
who's a better player?
Kyrie Irving is better in general.
Right, all right. Now, I feel like we try a little bit too hard when we try to come around this. Well, he's a better player, but for this team, no. He's not better, and I'm not sold that he's going to make them better on the court. And I think that something is happening related to Boston that we can't ignore, which is an attempt to blame everything that went wrong on Kyrie Irving. Now, you know how I feel about old Three Eyes. I'm down to joke on him from time to time. But Kung Fu Kyrie, early in his tenure, we had all the great things to say about him. In fact, early in this season, we had all the great things to say about the way that he's playing. Kemba Walker is a high-usage point guard. He had a usage rate around 30% last year. You bring another one of those dudes in there to work with these other guys who want more shots? Okay, good luck.
But what's promising, though, is that Kemba Walker seems to be opting into the Boston scenario. Today, Stephen A. and Woj have both said Charlotte's coming in under the Supermax, well under the Supermax. Michael Jordan doesn't want to pay Kemba Walker, which I understand. And so he has the opportunity to go to Boston, make less, and theoretically be the missing piece. Now, you mentioned the usage rate, which is a problem. He has skills, though, if he wants to modulate the usage, that come around to be really helpful, like spot-up three-point shooting. He can do that real well.
Hold on, you think that dude signed for 4 years, $181 million to turn into a spot-up three-point shooter? And again, he's not coming to Boston for less money. He's coming to Boston for more money. He's not opting into the program. He is opting into the check. Now, if Tatum and Brown had problems with their roles playing next to Kyrie Irving, along with having Gordon Hayward shoehorned into this because he's got to justify the salary that he makes, how do you think that's going to work, adding another guy into this mix in this way? Do you think it makes them a championship contender? Because I don't.
No, it makes them a team that could make a playoff run. And the Boston Celtics want to jump in the time machine and basically say it was about Kyrie. You're totally right. Why did last season not go well? Because Kyrie Irving was making demands of an offense that really wasn't specifically designed for him. Does Kemba Walker have the malleability as a player to understand all the concerns that you mentioned? I don't know him well enough to say that, but that seems pretty clear that that would be the job.
I'm saying that if you're paying this dude $35 million a year, what is this modulation of his game that we are talking about, right? Like, if you're going to pay him all the money that this offer would be for him to make, and then be like, yeah, now can you dial it back and become a spot-up shooter so these rookies can get more action? This is the same disaster they just had.
No, he leads this year, but then over time, because it's a 4-year deal, he will have to modulate if this is to work at all. Up next, though, is Zion Williamson. Because Bomani being the most celebrated #1 overall pick since LeBron means that some players, they're going to get sick of that celebration. Here is Enes Kanter serving takes to Colin Cowherd, for instance.
You think he's overrated? Just say it. You can say it.
Okay, I kind of feel like he's overhyped. I feel like he's Julius Randle with hops.
He's Julius Randle with
that's how I believe.
Bo, does Kanter's scouting report on Zion there make sense to you?
Now, here is what is interesting about this. Julius Randle might have been a more hype prospect going into his freshman year of college than Zion Williamson was. Like, let me tell you, if you are Julius Randle with hops, you are a multiple-time all-star in the NBA. Like, that's not nearly as shady as it seems to be, or maybe even as shady as he intended it to be. And I'm a person that does still have questions about what exactly Zion's role is going to be in the NBA, like how it's going to play out. But yeah, Kanter is doing that Kanter thing because he likes to troll just a little bit, except the hardest he could troll is by saying he'd be like this good player if he had this one exceptional talent.
Yeah, this isn't close to the bravest take that Kanter has. Obviously, he's an enemy of a literal state. That is making him the opposite of any burner account in the league. However, when it comes to this, you're right, man. If he's Julius Randle this year, if he is Julius Randle's performance last year, this year, Zion Williamson, he's the rookie of the year. And the thing that is weird to me is that Kanter is just dismissing hops as if all hops are created equal, as if his hops are just like a vanity skill. It's not. They might be as great a hops, so to speak, as any hops we've seen. And it's not just used superficially, it's used on defense. What is the highlight play that's not a dunk that Zion gave us? It's the closeout block of DeAndre Hunter when they played Virginia in the corner. His hops are a two-way skill that I think actually would elevate Zion, even based on the compliment that Kanter gave him.
There's also the danger, though, about how well his body's going to hold up because those hops involve landing and everything else that comes with this. But I just want people to realize this isn't like the era that we had previously where rookies just walk in and can possibly score like 25 points a game. Like, this NBA isn't like that in part because the rookies are coming in much younger. When you had guys walking in at 22, they were, boom, ready to play in the NBA. This is probably going to take some measure of adjustment. I'm not sure how people are going to adjust to this because since LeBron James, is he really the most hyped? Like, the idea that he's more hyped coming in than Kevin Durant was kind of crazy to consider. But see, the thing with Davis was our expectations were mitigated with Davis because he's a slow development in his offensive game, and we knew that was going to take a while. Zion was jump off the screen in college in a way that nobody has been since, and I'm not sure what the average NBA fan realistically expects from him.
I think the hype with LeBron is most closely paralleled in terms of actual hype, in terms of the conversation. Because remember what happened when LeBron himself came into the league. We had Darius Miles and Carlos Boozer on the Cavs, his future teammates, talking about how they had better players at that position. Like, I think there is just a resentment of, wait a minute, why are you assuming that this young guy who's proven nothing can come in and hang with the men that we are, even if the man that Zion is, we just don't really see that often.
Yeah, and it also is weird because it's a body type that we really haven't seen in the NBA before. Like, this is unprecedented in a lot of ways. And never assume self-awareness from NBA players, right? Like, never forget this. You talk about LeBron's rookie year. You remember what Ricky Davis said he thought when they drafted LeBron?
Oh, yes.
That they got him some help.
Yep.
Ricky Davis, who saw himself my brother once saw Ricky Davis dunk on an NBA player when Ricky Davis was 15 years old, right? He thought that he was LeBron. He thought that he was that type of guy. And he's like, yeah, finally a phenom to keep up with the phenom. These other guys in the league, they're looking at Zion the same way. They're like, I would have been like that except, whatever the except may be.
Absolutely. But if Zion Williamson can do the thing where he shoots three-pointers at a rate of 34%, which is what Julius Randle did, this guy, that ceiling, man, only gets higher.
Oh. All right, coming up next, Gilbert Arenas throwing shade at Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman.
You from above the Heineken River deck at Pier 17.
Oh, Wojbomb.
Rob Pelinka has found, is it vindication?
No, basically, they found the trades, but they expanded the Pelicans trade in order to create the cap space. Because as you guys told me, this was all part of the original plan. That's why they had to go back and redo the first trade.
That's right. And shout out, by the way, to the Wizards, a team without a GM, for making free agency that much more entertaining for everybody else. Because
they're the third party in this trade.
Oh,
Pelicans,
yeah.
Lakers, Wizards.
Isaac Bonga, congratulations to them. You got him now. But we have to talk, Bomani, about this little guy's story, because Lou Williams went on Gilbert Arenas' No Chill podcast, which then proceeded to take a flamethrower to Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman and the 1990s at large.
I'm starting to hate everyone in the 90s that played basketball, that whole group, because they just think they shit don't stink. Right. Like, you got, Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, both 6'7", both weigh 210. Talking about they're going to stop somebody in today's game. Like, nah. 6'7", 210. Like, you are a little guard in today's game. You guys are little guys. Like,
but that's every 10 years the game changes.
Yeah, that's what I said. They have no idea about evolution. It's like they don't take evolution.
I always have these debates with my friends. I was like, bro, can you imagine dropping LeBron in the 75? Like, just drop LeBron now that you know in 75. I was like, bro, he won 15 championships in a row.
It's like dropping.
Bo, what do you make of the lack of chill we just saw?
Well, I do think it's interesting that a man of his age would be willing. Like, normally people aren't riding with the young boys in circumstances like these. Because Gilbert Arenas, man, it's been a long time, right? But no, he is riding with the young boys. He's saying the old dudes are going too far. I just feel like he picked the wrong two examples of dudes to talk about here. Like, if Draymond Green could be successful in this era, I don't see why Dennis Rodman can't. And as much as you say that those are little guards, there aren't that many 6'7" guards in the league right now. Scottie Pippen's one of the best defensive players that's ever been and a great playmaker. Like, he would still be fine. It's the lower levels of the roster that you would be taking some spots away from. But you ain't got to be ridiculous about this.
Yeah, Pippen and Rodman could absolutely play in the modern NBA. And look, they're right about the evolution of the game changing, because go down the list of the best players in the league, you're looking at aliens like Embiid and KD and Giannis and down the list, right? Kevin Durant. Guys who can stretch the floor, who are 7 feet tall, who can handle, have that neuromuscular stuff. However, the other parallel evolution has been in the multi-positional, switch everything defensive players. And that's what these guys were then, and they could absolutely be that in the present tense. They are long. Their wingspan is like over 7 feet each.
Yeah, no, I mean, when people talk about the size element, because look, my brother and I used to say this in the 90s. We dropped Robert Horry off in the 60s. They think he was a superhero. And there is something to that, because the athleticism of the modern game has changed a great deal. But the hyperbole that we get into in this is where it loses me. It's like, for example, where he starts talking about, Lou Williams talks about, we dropped LeBron in 75. They win 15 straight championships. You know who played in 75? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know how many championships he won in the 70s? One. A single solitary championship at that point. Like, we be disrespecting those cats in the 70s in particular a little more than we should.
Somewhere Bob Ryan is yelling at his television on the behalf of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because I do think there's a lot of my dad could beat up your dad stuff here. There's a lot of childhoods being impugned. The fact that Kareem only won one, I think there are young people out there who would say that's because he played against janitors. That's because a guy even like Dennis Rodman, now fast forwarding to the 90s, Dennis Rodman was the greatest rebounder of all time. He dominated that stat more than any other human dominated any other stat. And it's not simply size. Oh, these guys have brains. They have skills. And Rodman's brain, his anticipatory skills, you drop that in any era, that still remains the same.
Yeah, now my belief has always been that the top tier of players in any era could play in any era. Like, if Michael Jordan played in the NBA right now, Michael Jordan is probably the best basketball player out there, right? Like, that's
totally fair.
Right. Like, I don't think that that's an absurd thing to say. If you drop LeBron off in the 1980s, right? Prime LeBron and young Jordan. Prime LeBron, maybe the best player in the NBA at that point, but cats like Bird and Magic, they're right up there with them. The game drops at that next level, that step below. And maybe that's why Lou Williams is so excited about this, because Lou Williams is out here like, man, you dropped me off in the 80s, I'd have made the All-Star team 5 times. Who knows? Maybe so.
But also, the rules about the time travel you describe are weird, because does Michael Jordan, if he gets dropped into the present tense, for instance, does he get to load manage? Does he get all of the miracles of the modern scientific approach to the game? Because that would also be a boon to anybody.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, if I drop Lou Williams off in 1985, what's he going to do when they start hand checking? That's the Steph Curry argument on the other side, you know? Coming up next, DeMarcus Cousins going to go to the Knicks? You excited?
Oh, God.
You know, we were just talking about Gilbert Arenas. It's almost been 10 years ago since this absurdity took place. And I wish we had a better angle of everybody who's there, because it's such an NBA picture. Deshaun Stevenson, JaVale McGee, Swaggy P, and Antoine Jameson with the smile on his face that's like, oh, man, we going to get in trouble. Is that Mike Miller over there in the corner?
Ooh, I think that is Mike Miller. He had like the...
But nobody else can see it. And
Oh, that's Alberto?
I thought that was him, but I honestly thought I was mixing him up with someone else Caucasian. Quote! The Knicks are weighing the prospect of extending a considerable one-year offer to Warriors free agent big man DeMarcus Cousins if they miss out on top target Kevin Durant. Tweeted Mark Stein. Pablo, given Durant's injury, is this an acceptable backup plan?
No, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to have your safety school be DeMarcus Cousins in 2019. And DeMarcus Cousins did have flashes in that finals that made you think maybe he's not all the way dead, because he had like a couple of games where it was like, oh, look, he's doing stuff. He's passing, he's shooting, and then you look and he averaged like 8 and 5.
He looked D-U-N done in those finals. And the thing about being D-U-N done is that you can have times where you still look like you have it. There will always be flashes because he is so absurdly talented, right? Great hands, all of it. Except he can barely jump, right? And his game was not built to be a Zach Randolph game. Zach Randolph never was able to jump, so he figured out how to do this forever. I don't know how you just figure out now that you can't jump and then develop an effective game around it, especially at that size.
But here's the thing from the New York perspective. Is this a short contract? Is it just 1 year? Because if it's 1 year of Boogie Cousins, man, I get it. Like, you're not going to get anybody else because New York cannot have nice things. But if it's just 1 year of, a nice study abroad program for Boogie Cousins, yes, and then he's gone. But if it's longer, that's where it becomes, it's just the Knicks all over.
Well, you're using him as a contract if you get him, because the one thing I think that you might be able to convince somebody of, if you bring him in and he plays reasonably well, and then you can trade him, and then, for the benefits that somebody else would get on their cap. But as a player, come on.
That's pretty good, actually. Good idea. Next number, 3. Because USA versus France is tomorrow in the Women's World Cup at 3 p.m. Eastern. So Bomani, given the quality of opposition, is it a failure if the U.S. goes out tomorrow?
Well, we got to decide how exactly it is that we feel about the U.S. women's national team here, right? Now, the most dominant international team that the United States sends out in competition is in men's basketball. And we hold them to an absurdly high standard. We do not celebrate when they win, and we set them on fire when they lose. And losing is simply getting a bronze medal, right? That is what we do. Perhaps as dominant or close to that level of dominance approaching that has been U.S. women's national team soccer for a very long time, except we do not treat them according to that standard. They are here to make us feel good about Americans, not to be evaluated for what it is that they are doing for America. But if we treat them as we typically treat teams on this level, then yes, it would be a failure if they lost.
Yes, and the following cycle, there should be a redeem team of different people because we were so angry at the people who lost the first time around. But what's funny about all of this is that France is a good team. France is the second best team in the field. They just struggled against Spain, eked out a 2-1 win earlier this week. I believe the U.S. is only favored by half a goal according to Las Vegas. It's entirely reasonable, except what should happen is an existential crisis. It should be the thing of, how is our youth development doing? Are we getting enough diversity at the kid ranks in terms of players? All that stuff should be following a loss.
Well, sort of, because I think with the men's team, we do that sort of stuff with them, but they're not nearly as good as they are, right? They don't have to answer for the strength of their program. Their program is strong. The men's team, we do have to wonder why we got 300 million people and can't more of them play soccer, right?
That is always an eternal question.
It does ask a different question from them. Here's the existential question to me. As Americans, do we love a sport if we are reasonable about it? I hadn't thought about it like that, had you? In closing, happy birthday to our producer, Jasmine.
Yeah!
To celebrate, here are a couple of people she had taped to the wall of her high school locker.
Facts.
All right, that's Nelly.
That's one.
Oh, I know where they're shooting this video at. You have to figure it out on your own. I ain't giving them no shine. Al, come on, Allen Iverson. You can't let the St. Lunatic do you in. By the way, Charles Peach over there tried to tell us that Murphy Lee had, and I quote, a few bars. A few bars. Right? Look at this. Oh, man, they disrespected Philly. Jasmine for Philly, and we put this video in with Iverson missing these shots.
Still missing.
Yes.
Still missing.
By the way, on another day at that arena, they'd have called the cops on Allen Iverson showing up dressed like that.
He ain't gonna make it again before I make it.
Here we go.
Yo. Nelly was like a rock and jock legend, by the way. He was like the best.
Oh, we have a hard time explaining to people how famous that dude was.
Or how athletic this is.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Damn.
Yeah.
I did not realize that Nelly had the gymnastic ability that he is displaying.
He made a nursery school rhyme out of a drive-by.
So, yeah. The producers in the corner are yelling at me in my ear to put respect on Allen Iverson's name. Can we please cue up respect?
Here we go.
That's Dwight Howard. Man.
He will not be blocked. He will not be blocked.
Like, that's an encouraging highlight, but I just want to get back to Jasmine having Nelly and Allen Iverson in her locker. Are you still proud of it, Jasmine? Are you still proud?
Pablo,
Very proud.
Pablo, didn't you spend middle school fantasizing about Lady Gaga before she was even Lady Gaga?
High school, she used to play concerts in the cafeteria of my high school, and she was beautiful and talented.
Don't judge.
In closing, I would like to reintroduce all of you out there to Vasily Komotsky, the greatest face slapper in the known universe, and here he is first competing against a human.
He cheated here, though. Look at Popeye. Look at Popeye over there.
Ridiculous video.
I mean, he got him behind the ear. That's cheating. He knew he was cheating.
That was a little rabbit punchy.
Cheated on purpose. Wow, good job getting back up.
Woo! That was a lot of wrist. A lot of wrist to the ear. But here is his latest work.
Yo, I gotta say, I didn't realize what a wasteful human being he was. I had no idea. Look at that as it goes. Look at the color on that melon. You gonna tell me that you just gonna waste that? In fact, I feel like you might get in better shape if you improve your diet.
That is a hydrated melon. That looks like it could get some nice feta cheese and a nice summer salad, maybe.
Everybody loves watermelon, and anybody who doesn't is just a hater.
Agree.
Highly questionable. Coming up next.